Here's a question for you big TV fans. Can downsizing your TV actually be an upgrade? Let's find out. The X95L is Sony's new flagship mini LED 4K TV for 2023, and it comes in just one size, 85 inches, and it's replacing the X95K that we used as our reference for most of 2022. Now, real quick, you guys, if you're not into specs, go ahead and meet me here. For everyone else, the X95L is a true 4K mini LED backlit display with XR backlight master drive for control over the TV's various zones, though Sony remains pretty tight-lipped over the actual number, but claims there are 20% more. Sony's cognitive processor, XR, analyzes and enhances the video signal in real time to make images appear more true to life while also upscaling lesser signals like SD and HD to 4K. The Sony is Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision compatible. It has support for IMAX enhanced content as well as a Netflix calibrated mode, though the latter is only functional when using the Netflix app through the Sony's Google TV operating system. It has 4 HDMI inputs, 2 of which are HDMI 2.1. Now, one of the 2.1 ports also serves as the TV's ARC eARC input, which means it's likely going to be connected to a receiver or soundbar, leaving some users, like gamers, with only one additional 2.1 compatible input for their next-gen console. If you have a 2.1 compatible receiver, you're not going to be lacking in inputs. But for those of you who prefer that hardline connection, the Sony is limited. The positive news for gamers is that you can still game in 4K 120 in HDR along with VRR and ALLM. The X95L uses Google TV as its operating system, giving users access to pretty much all of the major streaming apps like Netflix, Hulu, Max, you get the idea, plus access to Bravia Core, which is Sony's higher quality, mostly a la carte streaming platform. Along with built-in streaming apps, the Sony also has support for Ethernet and Wi-Fi connectivity, as well as wireless streaming options like, Bluetooth, AirPlay 2, and Chromecast. Smart home fans will love the inclusion of Google Home, Alexa, and Apple Home support as well. Now, swapping out any TV can be a chore, never mind a 98-inch monster like our old TCL. The Sony weighs almost as much as the TCL, mind you, and it is going to require a pretty substantial mount. We recommend Kanto Pro mounts for installs like this. Sony includes feet that can be used if you'd rather place the X95L on top of a cabinet, and the legs are adjustable to give you more clearance for a soundbar. Now, we connected the Sony TV to the Sony 7000ES receiver using a single 8K-capable HDMI cable connected to both the TV and the receiver's HDMI eARC input, which let us enjoy all of the major surround sound formats, including Dolby Atmos, as well as have full control over both pieces with a single remote with no additional programming. Sources included are Apple TV 4K, Dune HD Max Player, and Sony PS5. Now, for calibration and testing, I use my MacBook Pro and Video Forge pattern generator, and I'm going to get into those results in just a bit. If you want to check out the speakers we use, be sure to check out the description below. For those of you who have a Sony receiver like our 7000ES receiver or a Sony soundbar, the X95L will display its more convenient functions and controls in the TV's pop-up or quick menus, which is a really nice touch. Most AVRs cannot display on-screen menus or prompts when using another HDMI input on the TV. This forces users to switch to the receiver's input, make changes to its setting, then go back to the previous TV input to resume their programming. Having full control over most of the 7000ES's day-to-day functions inside the TV's own pop-up menu was a huge convenience. The X95L also has the ability to act as a center speaker when connected to a compatible Sony receiver or soundbar. The TV's internal speakers act as the center channel in a home theater setup, resulting in dialogue always coming from the center of your screen. You do have to use an S-center cable connection since the feature doesn't work wirelessly. Now, I decided not to test this feature since our TV is recessed into a wall. While we find most TV speakers to be lacking, this recessed space behind the TV causes the built-in TV speakers to sound just even worse. And Sony's own acoustic calibration procedure, yes, the X95L has auto room EQ. It doesn't fix this though. It is a feature some might find useful, but it was not applicable in our situation. The X95L launches in its standard picture profile, which is not accurate by any stretch, though it is very bright and very contrasty, so some of you may actually prefer it. I measured all of the factory picture profiles, and custom was by far the best, most accurate profile out of the box, with a delta E or margin of error of just over 3 for grayscale and 2 for color. Keep in mind, any figure under 3 is, well, considered calibrated, making the custom profile a great option for those of you who don't, have the tools or who don't want to mess with expensive professional calibration. Of course, being the nerd that I am, I wanted to know just how accurate the X95L could get, and I was very impressed with my post-calibration results. With a full manual calibration, the Sony's grayscale and color accuracy improved to a delta E of around 1. No, this is not the best TV we have ever measured in terms of accuracy after calibration. That title still goes to the LG C2, but it is in the top 3. Had it not been for some low light irregularities that occurred with the darker test patterns between 15 and 30 IRE, the X95L would have come very close to matching, if not besting, the LG. Real quick note about calibration. The X95L works directly with CalMan software to speed up the process. However, this feature did not work in our tests. Now, I'm going to place the blame on the Parallels Windows setup on my MacBook Pro because the Bravia CalMan handshake always worked in the past when I was using a PC. Moving on to a favorite topic of TV fans, brightness. This TV is bright, and it remained bright even after calibration. Even with non-HDR content, the Sony crested 1,000 nits of peak brightness easily, with real-world, more full-screen brightness hovering around 500 to 700 nits, depending on the profile and your personal settings. If you set local dimming to its highest setting, you will get brighter results, but the brightness shift may be more noticeable with certain content. So to combat this, I recommend using the medium or low settings. Still, this TV is plenty bright, and bright enough to combat ambient light and even some pretty strong reflections from windows, though for the absolute best viewing experience, obviously a darkened room is always preferred. Along with eye-popping brightness, the X95L's control over its unknown number of backlighting zones is pretty great. Not quite OLED level good, but among the best I've seen from a mini LED. Blooming is improved over the outgoing X95K. As for other nitpicky items like, say, the dirty screen effect or DSE, our sample fared very well, better than the TCL and other LED-based TVs we currently have in-house. While it is possible to calibrate the Sony to near pixel-perfect perfection, the truth is, in its custom picture profile, with the brightness set to max, gamma set to 0, and the dynamic contrast and local dimming settings set to medium or low, I doubt many would be able to tell a factory sample from one that is fully calibrated. The X95L produces one hell of a realistic and three-dimensional image. It took all of about 2 seconds for the difference in perceived contrast, both in terms of grayscale and color, to be apparent when switching between our TCL and the Sony. The TCL, it's no slouch, but the Sony is definitely better. Colors, they just had more depth and gradation to them, regardless of the source material. There was greater contrast in the highlights too, which was most noticeable when watching scenes from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in Dolby Vision. Black levels were inky black, though admittedly, low light scenes still exhibited some mild crush at the extreme, with some subtle lifting as you near 50% gray, which is where I believe OLED, specifically the LG C2, still has it over mini LED, but we are seriously nitpicking here because the Sony's image is beautiful. In my opinion, Sony is among the best at rendering skin tones and textures. The 95L looked more natural and organic by a country mile compared to any Samsung TV we've seen. The Sony absolutely excelled at showcasing the finest detail in such a way that when coupled with its improved color and grayscale contrast, made images appear sharper and cleaner than a lot of 4K TVs I've seen recently. Speaking of images looking sharper and clearer, the Sony looked brilliant when watching older films like Rebel Without a Cause or Giant. While I'm not going to go so far as to say those classic films looked as good as modern digital cinema transfers, my SD and HD transfers of the film looked pretty damn good. Definitely sharper and more enhanced without looking artificial or sacrificing the content's natural grain structure and film-like character. Couple this with Sony's bang-on color rendering, and you've got one of the best presentations of two of my favorite films ever. And Sony excels when it comes to fast-paced content like sports or gaming, and the X95L's motion performance is no exception. I detected zero perceivable judder or excess artifacts when viewing faster-paced content or sports broadcasts. Gaming was buttery smooth. I had no issues playing Overwatch 2 and The Last of Us Part 1 on the PS5, even with both games in their maximum quality settings. There was just zero additional lag or dropped frames. I'm sure die-hard gamers will argue that LG is still the king for console gaming, but I think the X95L definitely narrows the gap. I mean, for a more casual gamer like myself, this TV is every bit the LG's equal when it comes to the features these two TVs share. Now, one comparison I know you are waiting for is to the X95K. The X95L isn't a giant leap over the outgoing K, but there are notable improvements that may make an upgrade worth it for those who demand just the very best and have the funds to climb that picture quality ladder. When it comes to backlight control and local dimming, the 95L is better. So if you watch a lot of content with subtitles, the new L is going to be the better option. I also think folks who like to watch older non-4K content will also see improvements with the new model. And for those of you with media/living rooms, brighter spaces, you're going to find the 95L's brightness helps with HDR content. Is the X95K a piece of junk that you need to scrap in favor of the L? No, and you no doubt can scoop one up for a fraction of what the L costs today. But if you just gotta have the best, the X95L is the mini LED from Sony you want. As for Samsung's latest crop of LED-based displays, we've only tested their 8K model, the 900B, which is fabulous, definitely brighter and more punchy. That said, I would 100% get the Sony over the Samsung because it's more accurate out of the box. I prefer the Sony's more organic and natural look too, especially when it comes to primary colors and skin tones. The Samsung is impressive for sure, but the 95L, it gets my vote. While not an apples-to-apples comparison, the Sony is actually a great alternative if you're looking at Samsung's new S95C OLED. Obviously, the Samsung has exceptional image quality and looks more natural than its predecessor, the S95B. Now, both TVs have some quirks when it comes to their black levels, but I'm still Team Sony over here. As much as size matters, light output, contrast, and color accuracy, at least to me, matter more. While the jump from 85 inches to the TCL XL's 98 inches isn't subtle, I feel just as immersed in the Sony's image. Its attention to detail and finer rendering of, well, just everything is fantastic. I still love the TCL, especially when it comes to late night viewing. I miss it, but there's just no denying that for the same amount of money, the Sony is the superior TV. I'm really hoping that we're able to get our hands on the updated Mini LED XL from TCL to see if it can swing me back into that, bigger is better camp, but for now, the Sony's staying right where it is. Wrapping up all of my impressions, I am actually a little bit surprised that I could go back to a smaller TV after living with the absolutely massive TCL. But like I just got through saying, and this is going to trigger some front projection enthusiasts, when it comes to home theater, size isn't everything. While it's easy to be wowed by a big image, one can be equally wowed by a more accurate and dynamic one. This is where I think the X95L pulls ahead and provides for an equally satisfying movie-going experience, one that I believe puts it atop the mini LED heap at the moment. I get that the TV isn't cheap, but this level of exacting visual performance rarely is. So that's it for me and what I think of the Sony X95L, but before we get out of here, what'd you think?
I really liked it.
I'm shocked.
Oh, come on. No, it's really good. The colors are almost Leica-esque to me, which is in very high praise if you're a photographer.
Yeah.
I do miss the TCL, though.
What?
I do. I mean, I'm not 100% with you on the downsizing bit, but this TV is about the only one that could convince me to switch cameras. So for me, if the new 98 XL, that's a mini LED, if there are any improvements, I'm going to be insisting that you swap TVs. Sorry, not sorry.
That's fair. If the new mini LED TCL comes out and turns out to be an absolute beast, I will modify the wall so that it can look more like how the Sony looks in our room right now.
Oh, you will?
I will. I will, because I don't like seeing it floating out in front of the wall. I mean, I'd probably use the TCL as an excuse to finally demo this room and start over.
I honestly, I cannot believe how bright it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Samsung 900B bright. I mean, you needed a pair of sunglasses for that TV.
You really did.
It was a bit obnoxious, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
And not something I would normally attribute to Sony.
I mean, it's one thing to do brightness runs during calibration and seeing, 1100, 1200 nits and all of that stuff. And that's always super impressive. But when I go full screen brightness testing, which isn't standard, not a lot of people do it, but I always just like to see it. And when I'm seeing 753 nits without any kind of real effort on my part, as far as like, oh, let's crank this up, let's do this, let's do that, I'm like, that to me is impressive. Because normally when you go to full screen, even though a TV may have just thrown 1,000 nits at you in a peak run, you go full screen, it's like 250, 279, maybe 300. And this bad boy in SD is cresting 700. And that was just like,
Well, I want to talk a little bit about comparisons.
oh, I thought I did good.
You did. I just, it's my turn, so I get to tell people what I think. All right. So I know that this TV that I'm about to bring up is an OLED, the Sony A95K. It's from last year. We actually got it. Like, they finally sent it to us and then immediately announced, like,
The same day. The same day we got it.
Its replacement. And it's like, this is pointless. Okay, so I personally would rather have this TV, the X95L, just because I like a bigger TV. But I was curious what your thoughts are about the OLED since it's not getting its official review.
Yeah. It's fabulous. I've already taken all the measurements of it and everything, and it is every bit Samsung's equal with the exception of peak brightness. I love it. I think it's borderline perfect, especially in our bedroom. At 65 inches for smaller spaces like a bedroom, or if you're in an apartment or just have a smaller living room, family room situation, it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's plenty bright. I wouldn't put it like right next to Windows because OLED have that true glass screen, and I believe Sony does have a coating on it, but it's just not quite as good as the coating that is on the mini LED here. I'm super pleased with it. I know that eventually we will be sent its replacement and that will get its full review, but I'm not really in a hurry to have to play musical chairs with it. I love it.
Okay, and I only have one more. LG.
Okay.
It's in last place for me. I am not saying LG is a bad television. I'm just saying, for me, it's just a little too complicated to get the colors and just the picture quality just right.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't personally think anyone has time for that. Can you get to a great image? Of course you can.
Best in the business.
I prefer something that when you plug it in, you turn it on, at least one of the internal picture modes is like great.
Yeah. And Sony gives you that. All right, guys, that is now our review of Sony's new X95L mini LED 4K TV. What did you guys think? I know this TV is like brand new. I'm not even sure if models have started to ship at retail. So are you excited for it? Is this something that's been on your radar that you've just been like, what are people going to say? I want to know. So let us know down in the comments. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go ahead, ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Kristi left for you down below, it's a great way that you've continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here, and both of us thank all of you for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and that's it. That's it for us today. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound or sight of your system is you. So happy listening, happy viewing. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.